So, hello. So, we have a comment here straight away from Orion Sue, and he says, "Hi, hello, Orion." So, yeah, I thought I'd just come and do a little bit of a live stream. Sorry that I've not put out too many videos in the last 2 days. I've been tired from my adventures at the weekend, and I just thought I'd have a little bit of a rest from the shorts format. Although I did put out another long video today, and that's a really nice video and an up close look at the Romano-British sword you saw on Saturday being unboxed, or slightly unboxed on camera. So yes, we've got 4 people watching already. Brilliant. So yeah, so how are you all today? I think that's always a polite and nice thing to ask people, is how they are. I'm good. I'm very tired today though. I've been out 3 nights in a row going to my local pub. So I think after 3 nights of drinking, and especially Saturday night when I stayed up all night with a crazy woman, and very nice lady, of course. She would make a very good Viking warrioress. She really would. And but I imagine she wouldn't want to wear many clothes. That's another story. But yeah, because she's a force of nature, and I love strong-minded women. I do. I don't know why. I've always found that attraction when it came to, and it does come to, strong-minded women. Women that speak their mind. Women that stand up for themselves. Because it's an old thing. Because let's face it, it's women are powerful creatures. The great leaders. And I know we often debate among the old world of the Norse and the Vikings and medieval history, did women actually fight? Well, I would say yes. It may not have been as common as men fighting, but certainly women fought. And then yesterday, because very recently I joined a couple of, you could say brotherhood clans on Facebook, which are a little bit overwhelming because there's so many members, and I'm not a massive Facebook user, to be fair. I mean, I did see a comment thread talking about how they've recently been looking at some of the Viking graves. I think they're from Iceland, and originally they thought there was male graves, but now they've looked closely, they actually found that they're actually female graves, and when they're buried, they've been buried with weapons. So if that's not a clear indication in my mind that women fought, and why not? Yeah, I mean, a woman may not want to go to fight into battle if she was fundamentally married and had children. Well, unless you probably had the coin to have somebody look after your children. But also in those days, and very much not unlike today, to a certain degree, people had more connections with your family and your neighbours and your friends. So they could manage and look after your land and your children if the husband and the wife wanted to go to war. And it was a glorious thing to do. So I thought that was quite interesting. And I don't know whether, there's often, if I see something like that, I often screenshot it. So I got it in reserve for future use. And at some point, I definitely want to start on Instagram, just using a green screen, because there's so many things I'd love to talk about. So I could go on the green screen. I could have, let's say, a picture of a helmet or a picture of an archaeological find, and then for a minute or 2 or 3 in the shorts format, I'll talk about it. What would you think about those videos? Would you welcome that extra content on the channel? Because I never really messed around so far with a green screen. In fact, I don't think so far, out of all the, thousands, not tens of thousands, or not, maybe not tens of thousands, but certainly over 10,000 videos I've made, I've never actually used a green screen. Not physically, because I don't own one, but I never got onto TikTok and actually use a green screen. So yeah, I keep looking at that sort of content, and I've seen quite a few people I follow. There's a guy I follow on TikTok called Ricky, who's a veteran from the UK, and he uses the green screen a lot, and he's got a very popular channel. So let's just go look at your comments. I've got a cup of coffee because I'm trying to wake up. I'll catch up with your comments in a second. I'll explain what I've been doing today. A little snippet of the life of Braggy, which, to be fair, I haven't done a great deal today. And I thought I'd just make myself a coffee because I don't know why. Well, I think I do because I think I've been overdoing it probably. I'm very tired. So you hate it when you wake up and you're still tired. And no matter what you do, you go for a walk, you get some fresh air, you drink some coffee, you still remain tired. So I went to that last night. So this is a kind of a 24-hour period in the life of Braggy. And I think one day I will film an actual video like this, where you see me starting off lying in bed and I'll say hello, then we'll get up, we'll walk into Derby, I'll film a bit, we'll go and have a look around, go for a cup of coffee, film that maybe, visit the museum, look, because whenever we're in Derby, if we have time, I always go around at least one museum. And we are lucky in Derby Centre that we fundamentally have 3 museums, but I do believe there's a museum about computers, but I never seen it open. So I've never been in that one. But that'll be quite interesting. And of course, we often say, oh, this channel is about medieval history, but it's also about me and about what I do. So let's just catch up. So off for 10. Thank you very much for adding me on Facebook. If any of you guys do want to add me on Facebook, please do so. Please do say hello. There is a Northworthy Sagas and Stories page on Facebook, which I don't often use, and I must say I do neglect a little bit. And we do have a Discord, but again, I've already got Discord as a helmet falls down on my PC because I just don't really want it on my phone because if you're a content creator, you try to save as much memory space on your phone to filming content. And if you only got 30 gigabyte, that's not a lot. And of course, my phone doesn't have one of those capabilities of putting a SD card in, which is from Samsung, blooming ridiculous if you ask me. But just catch up with your comments. So it's lovely to chat to you on Facebook. But off for 10, if you don't know, lives in Norway and he's currently in North Norway visiting family. I'm sure you won't mind you telling you that. And he shared a few photographs. He's got a 28-foot boat that looks like a long ship, and I think that's awesome. And I really would love to come and spend some time with you, and you could show me Norway, and even for a weekend or a week, and have a look and visit the place, and If I was brave enough and not so tied to Derby, it's definitely one of those places that I would just say, sod it, I'm going to pack everything up, eradicate a lot of the rubbish, take what I want is essential and move to Norway for a new entire life. But I don't think my current person I'm possibly going out with really wants to go and live in a cold climate. But that's another story, which I try not to get too much in detail, which I would love to talk about that situation of mine. And, but I just can't really do it at the moment. So Offer 10 says, thumbs up. Yeah, and I wasn't fundamentally planning to do a live. I know I said last night I was going to do a live stream because I was so tired. And I will explain, today and what I've done. Not done a hell of a lot. So I thought, Offer 10 said, oh, you're doing a live stream, so I will come on live and I'm only lying on my bed watching a bit of TV. I'm just watching an episode of Highways of Heaven because I've never seen that series, and it's just good escapism. It just takes my mind off things when I'm not concentrating on content. Then we have a commentator from Bruce Dog, or Chunky Monkey, as I know you by, if I'm correct. And he says, Braggy! Hey, Bruce Dog. And of course, Bruce was also the name of the shark in Jaws. If you've ever seen the Jaws film, and I'm not sure whether it's the same for all the movies, whether they kept it as Bruce. And there's a lovely documentary about Jaws, the movie, at the moment, made in 1974. And the really reason why the shark got called Bruce was because Steven Spielberg, one of his first major movies he directed, named it after his lawyer. Was it his accountant? No, it's his lawyer. So small fact about the name Bruce. And of course, we also have the infamous film Robert the Bruce as well. And there is a really good film I saw a few years back talking about how Robert the Bruce escaped and how they was hunting him down. And that's a really good film. And I just can't remember the name. Is it just called Bruce? It may be, I don't know. But there's quite a few films on Robert the Bruce. So we have a commentator from Hayden Crowell. So hello, Hayden. How are you, my friend? And he says, did the Vikings come to Cumbria? Well, yes, because that was part of the Danelaw. And of course, you have what you call the Northumbria kingdom, which I think Cumbria, if I'm correct in saying, is where it is now fundamentally so. So, of course, that was a part of the old Anglo-Saxon kingdom. And of course, just before King Alfred came about, all those kingdoms were basically taken over by Wessex and so forth within the old scene, and all the other kingdoms were fighting each other. So it was a very brutal and bloody time with the seven kingdoms that were going. And if you do see the film The Last Kingdom, the movie, you see a lot of that explained. But then again, you also see it in the early stages of that TV show. And I think over Vikings or Last Kingdom, I think I prefer Last Kingdom, even though Uhtred of Badenburg wears a stupid sword on his back, which is just so ridiculous. And certainly we've demonstrated that. And there's at least one or two short videos where I've got a sword in my back, and it's just, you just can't get the thing out. No matter how many times you try, it's impossible. You're going to just die a ridiculous death if you try to go into a Viking battle and you're trying to get your sword out. And also, when you're doing that, you're opening yourself up. Look, all that area there. I'm trying to get my sword out. So if you get it down your side, it's one quick pull and bang, your opponent's being battered by your sword. But if it's on your back, you're still trying to get the damn thing out. But if you go to the channel, I think it's Scalagrim, he's done quite a few very good videos. Of course, not now, after this live stream, of course. And if you do go and watch some of his videos about the backsword, as we call it, do say hello from Northworthy. And of course, I do love his content. I do watch him now and again. And because when you are a content creator, you don't always want to be watching, content. Then we have a comment here from Birlotan. So I don't think I've seen you in the comments before. So hello, welcome to Northworthy, my friend. And he says, Northern Europe seems cool. Well, yes, it definitely does seem very cool if you can climatise and get used to the lack of sunshine in the winter and the cold weather. But I'm fairly certain you climatise very quickly because you have to adapt, really, you do. And if you go even further up, it's even colder and less sunlight. Because in England we don't have that, and if it snows once a year for one day, that's a rare thing. It's not like when I grew up in the 80s, when you used to get snow and it will be 10 inches, and it will happen all the time throughout winter. So the seasons have changed, and of course people always say, well, that's climate change, but of course it's not fundamentally climate change, because climate change is led by our sun. So it's actually sun activity increasing, and yes, I'm not denying that we've affected the planet with all the chemicals and all the stuff we put out in the atmosphere. No, but we've only had a small percentage, and a very small percentage of increase from humanity, where most of it comes from the sun and the natural movement of the planet. And there's a very good channel that I've watched quite a few times, and he does a daily video. I think he's rebranded himself. He used to be called Suspicious Observers, but I think he's now called Observers. He does a daily video about the sun activity, and he goes very much in a scientific way, if not a little bit boring, into all the different periods of the planet and how the planet, kind of self-regulates itself, and goes through various different phases, like the Heinrich event, when that brought about a massive amount of change. And if you go back, 120,000 years, then England would be, like a tropical jungle. Then you go back, 60,000 years, it was more deserty and more grasslands. So in 60,000 years from now, we'll probably be, a jungle again. And of course, I won't be here, and will the videos be here in 60,000 years' time? Well, that'd be quite amazing if they are. So hello, if you're watching me in 60,000 years, I'm Braggy, and I'm from the past, and I'm now dead. Well, perhaps I can make myself into a hologram or digitally download myself. And it's an amazing thought in itself, isn't it? But so yes, and of course also because of the magnetic pole shift, we also change position. So fundamentally, in 60,000 years, where I come from, the UK, England, won't be in the same place in the planet. It may be down south, it may be around the equator, because the planet shifts and therefore as the planet shifts, so do all the countries in the world. But of course, that's something we have to deal with as a humanity, which is why it's so important for the future that we actually do head into space, because planets aren't fundamentally a safe thing for long-term living because of those dramatic changes. But let's go back to your comments, and I'll then continue talking about what I've done in the last 24 hours. And then Matthew Watson says, thank you for your stream, fair lady. I'm a man, not a lady. Thank you very much. Just because I got long hair, that's very cheeky. But I'll let you off. It makes me laugh, though, that did. And then B28 says, best Viking on YouTube. Well, thank you very much. I mean, we do try. And, people always say to me a lot, I get the question, well, why do you choose Viking over Norse? Well, if you go to a keyword engine to look up the stats and the amount of data with words and how much they're worth when it comes to search terms, well, Viking is up here and Norse is down there, I'm afraid. So, and of course, if you mention and talk to people, if you say, I'm a Norse pagan, some people don't fundamentally know what a Norseman or a Norse person is. But everybody, no matter where you go, has understood and knows what a Viking is. Even though we get a lot of misconceptions, like we wear horns and everyone has got a beard. You don't have to have a beard to be a Viking. Because the only reason why at this stage of my life I don't have a beard is because I can't seem to ever get past the itchy stage. I really frigging hate that. Especially at 2 a.m. when you're trying to sleep and your beard is so itchy. So I think if I try again to grow a beard, I need to get some beard oil and use that sparingly and then have another go. But because the second reason why I don't have a beard is because then I'll look my age. I prefer to look like I'm in my late 30s, early 40s, rather than actually looking how old I actually am. In body, not in spirit, which is a whole entire different thing. And then Bruce Dog says, I saw that on a clip that Jaws was called Bruce. Bruce is the name of my dog. Oh, well, brilliant. I mean, if I had a dog, I'll definitely put the dog on YouTube, But I think probably with having a cat on the channel in cartoon but in digital form, I should probably get a ginger cat and call him Dave. So if we ever do have another cat in my life, I'm going to go for a big ginger Tom and I'm going to call him Dave, after Dave the Viking cat. And we'll make him a little Viking outfit and he'll do things like, pillaging birds and pillaging other people's food, which cats do. But yeah, so if you go to Prime, just type in Jaws, after the live stream, of course, you'll see a very good 90-minute documentary. And of course, it's got some really great characters and really great actors, including the guy that was in one of James Bond's best villains. And I hate it when I can't think of something at the moment. It's in there somewhere. This is why I need to have a digital implant in my head so I can remember everything instantaneously. I couldn't even say that then. And then Bruce Dog says, the TV series Vikings is the only show I can't watch on Netflix with the advert subscription. I wanted to start rewatching it again. I was like, damn, well, it used to be free, didn't it? At some point in the past, like a year ago. But it'll probably will come back to being free again. But I agree with you. Because although recently I've just subscribed back to the standard normal Prime of $7.99, even though I don't really need it because I don't buy anything on Amazon Prime. I managed to sort out, because I've got an Alexa here. You can't quite see, you can just see the edge of it. And I do like to listen to music, but for quite a while, for over a year, I've not had the music subscription. And because at one point in my time, I had 4 Alexas in the house. If you have more than one Alexa, they charge you £11.99 for the music subscription. So I managed to, with a Prime agent, just to sort out and actually get a prescription for £5.99, because I love listening to music, but I don't want the adverts. And then some days I just want to listen to an album of music. And I listen to a bit of music today, listen to a bit of Depeche Mode, a bit of disco, listen to a bit of Oasis and indie music, just to wake myself up this afternoon. We'll go back to your comments and then we'll continue talking about my day. And of course, this is more of a comments live stream hangout where I read your comments, I answer your questions, I talk about what I've been doing, I talk about what's coming out on the channel next. And then Orion Sill says, what is your opinion on the YouTuber, the Hooded Man? Well, I don't think I know him. If I had my TV control, I could have a look on my TV and tell you what I thought. But it's over there. No, I've not seen that. I'll have to have a look later on. Is he a medieval? It sounds like he's somebody's dressing up as Robin Hood. I know there's a guy on TikTok who's the Robin Hood from the Sherwood Forest Centre. And he does very well in his videos, gets some really high views. And I like his style, which I won't mind trying to emulate more in the future. Because I often forget, I'll film a video for this shorts format and I'll just do it in a minute. But sometimes I should think, well, perhaps I should concentrate on making them a bit better and perhaps just go to different locations in my garden and just try to do more interaction. So yeah, I'll definitely have a look. And then in the next live stream, once I've had a look at the Hooded Man on YouTube, and of course there's so many millions of YouTubers out there, it's crazy. And then we have Berotan says, I thought you was in your late 30s, early 40s. Your age, well, sir. Oh, well, I do. I look after myself, even though I think I could do getting some, some good supplements just to improve my skin and look after myself a bit better and lose a bit of weight, because I put a bit of weight on this summer and spring because I've been eating too well. So if I could lose a stone of weight at least. And I know when I met my girlfriend in 2023, because I've been going through a lot of problems with my dad after my dad dying, I stopped eating for quite a while and I was down to just under 12 stone, which is the lightest I've been for years. So if I can get down to 12 stone, because at the moment I'm about 14 stone. So, I put a stone on in weight so quickly, so I need to try to lose that. And of course, losing weight is quite easy on paper. If you burn more calories than what you eat, then you lose weight. But of course, if you're sitting down on your arse all day, or ass, whatever description you want to call it, bottom, and you're editing videos, you're not being physically active. So, and of course, if I'm not being physically active, I'm also not making myself tired, and therefore I don't sleep. But I'm working on it. And then we have a comment here from Matthew Watson. Not 4. And he says, why can't they hear? You can hear me, can't you? Because if you ever see a problem with the live stream, if I'm ever, you can't hear my voice, or the picture's really bad quality for some reason, or I'm not there, you can just Facebook. If you're on Facebook or your friend, you can just message me on there or leave it in the comment. But from my end, it seems okay. And I got my speaker on, so because everybody, if I've just been spending 22 minutes and I've been talking, you can't hear me, and all you'd be seeing is, which reminds me of that guy from Police Academy, which is another favourite film series of mine. That's such a funny series. They don't make films like that anymore, do they? And then Offer 10 says, the funny thing is that I saw Skallagrim when he lived in Trondheim. He hung out a lot at Valhalla sword shop back then. A very nice guy. Yeah, he does come across as a very nice guy. I really must say so. And then you got Scola Gaditoria, and he's very knowledgeable. And I think what's his name? I forget. Matthew. I think his name is Matthew. And he's also another really nice guy as well, and a good YouTuber. But again, those are the channels that inspire me. And when I started making content, one of the main channels that actually inspired me, let me think of his name. Wait a minute. Oh God, what's his name? Well, one of them was called Aquachigger. If you ever seen the channel Aquachigger, that certainly inspired me. And then you have the YouTuber that goes around all the Disney places, and he lived in a van at one point. And I can't remember his name. I should do, but I don't often watch anymore. I hate it when I can't think of something. Then another channel that kind of inspired me was a guy called Deep Digger Dan as well. So those 3 fundamental channels are the reason why I'm here now, fundamentally so, because those 3 guys inspired me. And in the moment when I'm not thinking about it, I'll remember the name of the other guy. He's a bit older than me. He's got a bit of a beard. He's a bit short and stocky, and he goes around, films lots of theme parks and theme parks that don't exist, and he does lots of stuff about Disney and Hollywood. And he spent about 5 or 6 years making a daily video. Oh, Adam the Woo. There we go. So he also inspired me. And I actually really do have a lot of time for Adam the Woo, because he comes across as a very genuine person. And I did watch one of his last videos where he was talking about the fact that he's quite a shy person in real life. And, and it's an odd thing for somebody to be doing that doesn't like the company of people, to be going around talking to people on a camera. And that kind of inspires me to want to, at some point in the future, buy a van and have the van, or do the van up, or have it done up, have a nice little sink, maybe a little pot belly stove, create a system where I can have a bed that folds down. And then when I'm traveling, I don't have to rely on staying in hotels, and I can then even think about, driving across Europe. And then that reminds me of a funny story I was told by an old friend of mine who is a retired policeman, and I got no idea what's happened to him. I think he moved away from Derby, and he used to be a traffic cop, so he used to drive a police car down the motorways. And he said one time he stopped a German man in a van, and so there's this, just in a routine stop. So he pulled this German man over, and he said hello, and the German man spoke good English. And he said, I noticed your fan looks a bit heavy and overloaded. And then when he opened up the back of the van, he said, you got this little bed, and then all the back of the van, it's a long wheelbase van, it's just full of signs that this guy has taken. Whenever he travels, he's been illegally hacksawing road signs down, and it's just full of dozens and dozens and dozens of road signs from all over Europe and the UK and Scotland and Ireland and France. He's literally been everywhere, and if he sees a road sign he takes, he just parks up and just hacksaws it down and throws it in the back of his wagon. And he said you couldn't move in the back of the wagon, and then they had to confiscate it because it made it too heavy. But that's a little funny story. Yeah. And then Offerten says, and he looks the name, and he took the name Scallagrim as ironic as having a lot of hair. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. And then D28 says, Braggy, what are your thoughts on the British Empire? Well, of course, the British Empire was responsible for a lot of good things, but it was also responsible for a lot of bad things. But let's face it, we did leave the slave system quite early on, and that was an important aspect in the beginning, and around the 19th century, the 1800s, when we went anti-slavery. Well, let's face it, a lot of people who were in the British Empire who were landowners had slaves, and that's never a good thing. And even terrible today, we've not gotten away from the old slavery thing. And in fact, where I live, there's been a number of quite famous cases of people actually keeping people as slaves, and ain't that a terrible thing, and absolutely disgusting. So from that point of view, it's not good. And we did try to dominate, and at one point we did dominate the world. We were one of the biggest empires. But of course, within empires, there's always winners and there's always losers. And the majority of the people are losers because they're left in poverty and they're controlled by the small percent that run everything. And of course, this very small percent, the privileged, the aristocracy, became richer and richer and richer, whereas the poorer people became poorer and poorer and poorer. And then some days I think, well, we need to fundamentally, in a good sense, bring back the British Empire, but not in the same sense of the past. The amount of time, and I think it's 9 years ago today we had the Brexit vote. I think it was today, 9 years ago. And I got so fed up at the time of politicians saying that, Britain's not great and we're never going to be great. Well, we've got to make Britain great again. And I do believe in that saying, because we've got a lot of wonderful history. And it's also about playing our part in the world and to make the world a better place. And the amount of negativity you used to get from politicians saying, and then, of course, the old Brexit thing hasn't fundamentally worked because we're still trying to make deals to this day. And we should have had the free movement. That should never have gone when it came to Europe, and there should never have been tariffs, certainly when it came to exporting and importing things. Just that the idea of fundamentally being your own sovereign country and making your own rules and not being dictated, by people in Brussels, to me, is very attractive. But then, is it a progressive thing? Are we by having Brexit? And I was a Brexiteer. I voted for Brexit because I thought it was a good thing. But we just not had the fundamental Brexit we got promised. And of course, all these prime ministers like what's his name? One with the mad hair. Boris Johnson tried to do it, and because it's not done, and now we ended up, with an absolute terrible, useless prime minister in the shape of Keir Starmer, who's very decisive and certainly one of the most disliked and hated people in the UK, I'd say. And certainly, if I started making Keir Starmer videos again, like I did, and the only reason at the beginning of the year I made those videos was to bring in traffic. Although I saw a few comments from some of the old subscribers saying, I don't like what you're doing to the channel, so I respected your thoughts and your wishes, fundamentally of the old subscribers, and stopped making those videos. And in fact, those videos are now mostly, I think apart from one, are unlisted or on the channel. And we did have a hell of a lot of comments, and some of those comments are still not replied to yet. And but it did help to bring about a lot of people, because those videos were fundamentally getting very high views. But from the day one, we've always decided, well, not to be too political on the channel and not talk about politics too much. Although that was fundamentally more from Turkey rather than me. I've always thought there needed to be a little bit of a balance. So that time we do need to talk about the bigger picture of the world and what we're living in. But if we go too far down that route of making political content, it does change the dynamic of the channel, which is why I don't fundamentally do it. But at least within the element of live streams and within the element of the new vlog series I'm planning to start refilming and carry on with the vlog series, there will be aspects of those where I will, maybe just talk about some of the things going on. I mean, you've got to look at the moment, what's going on with Iran and Israel. And, but then again, if you think about the plight of Palestine, it's a whole entire subject, and it opens up a can of worms. So that's fundamentally why we don't vastly do politics. Perhaps we should just stick to the politics of the medieval age. And it was in many ways a much simpler life, wasn't it? And I love that attraction. Another thing what I love about the past, it was simpler, even though you may have to stress about where you're going to get your food from the next day and the next year. And you may end up in a skirmish or a fight, whether you liked it or not, because they didn't fundamentally have conscription as to the way we know it in the modern world. But if you was an able-bodied man and you're ill and the king says you've got to go and fight in a big battle, well, you fundamentally had no choice unless you was not capable of fighting. But then again, I'd imagine a lot of men would also, even if they struggled not to fight, and with the even the older men, which would be more of a rarer thing, getting into your late 30s and your 40s and 50s. Although it's quite amazing to read about some of these famous characters in medieval history, and some of them really did live to a very old age. So we always have this misconception that 30 and 40 is really old, but no, actually, some people lived in the 80s and 90s before they died. So that too is fascinating as well. And then Bruce Dog says, I think it was awesome. And that's talking about the British Empire. Well, it was. In many aspects, it was an awesome thing. It was an amazing thing. We had the best navy in the world. We had an awful lot of colonies. And if we still had that situation and that going on in the world, would the world be a better place? I don't know. But at least we have the Commonwealth. And, I'm not a royalist. I'm more of a monarchist than a royalist. So a royalist is someone that's really massively into the royals, let's face it, and you only got to see people like, Prince Harry. I mean, what an idiot he's turned out to be, and I can't stand his wife, and not many people can. She's just a self-serving, narcissistic individual, is what it comes across as. But of course, we have the mainstream media that put these stories across, and you're only told what you're told fundamentally because of the way that information is controlled. It would be a big shock to the whole world if actually she wasn't a fundamental self-serving narcissist, and she was actually quite nice. But and then I remember back in the day when they got married, me and Eggle filmed a video about royal weddings and the long format, which is on the channel. I think in the first minute, I kind of stated that I thought she was quite ugly as a woman, and that may be true. But it's amazing how quickly both Harry and William are losing their hair, and apparently what they're saying, King Charles doesn't have long left, and apparently he's terminal. What I've read, but of course we hear things and we're not fundamentally told the truth. So whether that's true or not, but could we have in the next 5 years or 2 years a new king? And will King William be any better than the other previous kings? But of course, being a medievalist and knowing medieval history, well, in the past, the kings used to fight in the field wall, and they took part in the battles. A very typical example of this is King Harold Godwinson. Who lost his eye. I wonder which eye it was, whether it was his left or right eye, because we always talk about his eye, but nobody ever seems to say which eye it was. I think it was his right eye, because I think in the tapestry, the Bayeux tapestry, he's facing, looking this way, so he's got his right side of the face, so therefore it must be his right eye that was taken out. But again, would that fundamentally kill you in battle? Well, it depends on how far the arrow goes into your skull and into your part of the brain if it went up. But of course, if it's coming down, it's going to go down into your eye and into your cheekbone fundamentally, or plus past the eye socket. So you may not have fundamentally died from that wound, but of course it's going to be pretty deliberating, if that's a word, I don't know. And it's going to find it very tough to, not only are you going to be in shock because you just got a bloody big arrow in your eye. Are you going to be strong enough to pull the damn thing out, and then you're down to one eye? So and it's quite funny how it's very much aligns with Odin, doesn't it, with having one eye? And then we always have this speculation that actually he managed to survive the fight, but the accounts I read is that he was caught up with by a bunch of Normans, and they just basically butchered him after that. But of course we won't know the truth, and we never will know the truth. But again, it's a fantastic story. And it's a damn shame, really, that we didn't side with the Vikings, King Haraldo. We didn't say, well, let's make a deal. Because they must have known. There must have been rumours that the Normans were going to try that summer or in the autumn to invade England. So, it's a damn shame we didn't side with the Vikings and came up with some kind of a deal. Because that would have, if the Vikings and the Saxons... So let's say, for instance, we do have technology to go in the past, according to some sources, which I do know quite a bit about. So imagine if we do have the ability to go in the past, and somebody went up in the past in Old English, spoke to King Harold and laid it out. Look, Harold, if you go up north and fight the Vikings, you're going to win, but then you're going to go down south and get butchered by the Normans and lose your kingdom and lose an eye. So if you side with the Vikings, and that agreement was made, even given some land over to the north. And then the Vikings and the Saxons both marched down to fight the Normans and beat the complete crap out of the Normans and sent them going back over the coast crying, with the little funny hairstyles and the little funny shields. That would dramatically change history. And of course, then the age of the Angles and the Anglo-Saxons would have continued, and the Viking Age would have continued. And how fascinating history and how different history would be. But again, would the Normans have regrouped? Would they have tried to come over again? Would we, in that battle, if we did do that, would we eliminate, the Duke of Normandy, William? And as a Viking and an Anglo-Saxon person, because I do love my Anglo-Saxon history and my heritage equally much as I like my Viking heritage, because they're so closely aligned with each other. I've always had a bit of a negative thought about the Anglo-Normans. But we shouldn't really, because the Anglo-Normans were fundamentally Vikings that just became Normanized, and William was a fantastic leader. And if you read books and accounts of him, which I read one a few months back, I was again quite amazed by his life and what he went through, and how close as a child he was to being killed and assassinated a few times. and how he had to, do all these amazing things. And perhaps later in the future, we'll do a video on, the Duke of Normandy, or William the Bastard, as he was probably known. And then Bruce Dog says, redcoats and brave men. Well, of course there were. And I never still to this day understand how we managed to lose the American War of Independence. But we did. And then Bruce Dog says, yes, apart from the slavery, yeah, of course, that's the negative aspect of the British Empire. But then again, everybody was taking slaves, and nobody ever talks about the African countries and the African people selling their own people to the empire and slaving their own kin. And of course, that gets fundamentally overlooked. So no matter where you go in history, and you always think, well, Vikings had slaves, but the Saxons had slaves, the Jutes, and all the countries all over Europe were into slavery. The Romans had slaves. But at least in those cultures, fundamentally, you could earn your freedom and become a free man, certainly in Viking and Anglo-Saxon culture. And then Offerton says, one of my wishes is to visit Northern England and Ireland to see the ancient monuments there, such as Newgrange. Oh, yes, there are some fantastic places. And in fact, at some point in the future, when I get round to it, I'm going to take you guys to the Nine Ladies Stone Circle in the Peak District. And it's a fantastic place on an old moor, which is full of, Neolithic and Bronze Age and Iron Age history as well, and barrows and stuff like that. So we'll have a walk about and we'll look at the landscape, how it was over 2,000 years ago. And although I do believe they have found another stone, so fundamentally now it should be called the 10 Ladies. And I've certainly been there a couple of times with Eggle in the past before we started the channel, as we used to go out, me and Eggle, and have days out to Matlock and go to antique shops and have a cup of tea. And he'd always dress fine and wear a nice tweedy suit. He always was a very dapper dresser, was Eggle. And I just wish I took more photographs. And I wish back in those days I had a video camera and I had videos from the past, even though they may not be in the best quality. But I got so many memories from those times going out with Eggle and having a good time, because Eggle never really drove for many years. I used to say, well, we go out this Saturday, we'll go to Matlock Bath, or go to Chester or wherever. And he was always up for that. And if the time, I was always working, if at the time, you didn't have the money, to pay for a meal, well, I'll buy him a meal. Because that's what you do for your friends, and that's what you do for people you love. You look after them. And then when they're in a good situation, they look after you, whether it's in a physical or a mental or whatever form. So I got so many great memories of. I remember one time when we went to go to a World War II show at the Quiet Tramway Museum, which is another place I'll have to think about taking you in the future. And we was in the car park, just hanging about. And some guy came up and saluted Eggle, because he thought Eggle was a retired officer, and thought, I recognise you. You must be a major. You're like a major, sir. And Eggle started playing the part. Oh yes, I'm a major. Oh, major. He said, what's your name? Carter. Major Carter. Oh, and his little smiley face and his moustache was beaming all day. And then that was the day and I'll tell you a funny story. I was recalling to my neighbours the other day. So we did that. We went round the show, and then in the afternoon we thought we'll have a look round Matlock, because often we go to Matlock Bath, and me and Eggle used to love going through charter shops and going for a cup of coffee. So we parked up, got in a nice car park, and we started looking around Matlock. It's another place I'll take you as well in the future. And we were going through some charter shops. It's got a lot of charter shops in Matlock. It's a little town about 20 miles in that direction. So we're going in this charter shop, and Eggle was looking for a new coat, and of course you can get a new coat relatively cheap in charter shops, or what you call thrift stores in America, or a second-hand shop. So he saw a nice jacket he wanted, so he took it off the rail and off the clothes hanger, couldn't think of them. And then he got his jacket and put it on the clothes hanger and hung it on with the other jacket for a minute, and then he tries his jacket on, and he says, "Right, I'm just going to look in the mirror." He says, "Back in a minute." So I was looking around the shop, I wanted a new pair of jeans. I'm looking on the jeans rack, and then he came back and he couldn't find his jacket. So, so he had his new jacket on, and he thought, where's my jacket? It's got my wallet in and my phone. Where is it? And then we noticed that there was a guy walking out the shop with his jacket. So Eggle quickly went and stopped him and said, "Oi, oi, oi!" He said, "You've got my coat." And what? So, and I'm trying not to laugh at this point. And the guy didn't steal it because the guy thought it was a coat for sale and saw it, liked it, and went and picked it up straight away and took it to the counter and brought it. And the woman said, "Oh, that's £5." So he's walking out, this guy, random guy walking out with Eggle's coat, right, with his wallet and everything. And of course, he didn't know there was a wallet in his pocket and so forth. And his little tobacco pipe, which Eggle called Steve. And he used to make little noises with it, go, some little squeaky noises. So he stopped him and said, "Oh, what are you doing? That's my coat." So he had to take the guy back to the counter. The guy got his £5 back. And then was a bit huffed. "Oh, I thought that was a coat in the charity shop. I didn't know it was yours, mate." And there's me laughing my head off to the point where I couldn't even stand up straight. And they're all going, "Cheers, mate." Laugh at the wrong moment. "Well, why don't you?" I was in stitches. And then we got out the shop and there was a bench outside. I said, "I can't stop laughing. I need to sit down for 5 minutes." And I was just laughing my head off. There's Eggle sat next to me, raining. "That blooming guy nearly bought my jacket." He said, "How dare he?" Typical that is of me. Shit, things all, And he would always like shake his fist and go, "Bloody Odin, what you doing to me?" And blame the gods. And then the other hand, he'll go up, "Bloody Jesus," you blame him as well. He'll blame all the gods. And stuff like that always happened to Eggle. And there's me just sitting on this bench, with my head in my knees like this, going and laughing my head off. Going, that's the funniest thing I've seen all year, Eggle. He said, "Yeah, you're really hoping, mate." It was so funny. It's funny what you remember. You go back to your comments. And then Berotan says, "Interesting era for sure." But it definitely was an interesting era in history. And if we do get I don't really have much 18th century clothing. I could probably dress as a peasant and that'll be it. But if we do get some 18th century clothing, and of course when I start going to reenactment events and when I've got the money, and I will have, when I've got the spare cash and I go to some of the markets, I'm going to start investing in various bits of kit. So that, we can portray somebody from World War II, we can portray a red coat, we can... And it'll be authentic, because I don't do nothing that's not authentic. It's got to be authentic, and preferably secondhand is my favourite sort of kit. So yeah, so that'll be something we could bring to the channel, and I think that'll be quite interesting. I'm going to tell you what, I'm getting warm already. And I had to change my t-shirt before I came out, and the only one I could find was a Paddington Bear t-shirt. It's the one I got from a charity bin, but it fits me. But I did throw away 2 t-shirts the other day, so that's progress for me, because they both had holes in. And so, I'm trying to reduce what I've got. If you want any free stuff, I've got loads of free stuff in the house. And then Hasdak, so hello Hasdak. I'd love to see you here in the live stream. How are you, my friend? Please do let me know in the live stream how you are. Because if you're not already, let me know, you guys, how you are. And let's not forget the ladies. Don't we have any ladies watching? But they're always welcome on the channel. That's me being a ladies, man. If Eggle was here, he'd be going, "Woof, woof, baby." Yeah. Because Eggle loved dogs and he loved women. It's always made me laugh. Then Bruce Dog says, "Might be a vacancy for King soon in Iran. Do you think Prince Harry should apply?" Oh, well, he's bound to do a better job than what he's doing now where he lives, isn't he? But then again, he's spoilt, isn't he? He lives in a big house. He's got millions of pounds. He's got an ugly, wife who probably whips him with a whip at night and controls him, and probably a dominatrix, I would say. She looks like the sort, "Harry, go wash the pots." But he probably got servants for all that. So, and then he keeps sacking people who he doesn't get on with, don't they? and the whole idea and branding, and all the stuff and the crap she sells at ridiculous prices. It's just ridiculous. And then yesterday, when I was on one of these Norse pagan brotherhood clans, on the thing that was talking about Viking women, there was a link, and it took you to a website where they were selling allegedly Viking axes, but there was like £450 for an axe. £397, and you can buy this lovely bearded axe. What a waste of money, really, when you can get one for practically 1/5 of that, and a better well-made one and more authentic. So a lot of people are in the old Norse pagan world are just whipping people off, and it's all about making a buck and making $1 and £1, and it's not about Norse paganism. So, and of course you get your true proper traditional Norse pagan, which I think I am, and you get the ones which are well, you know what I'm going, don't you? They're just too hippified, and it's not what I would class as Norse paganism, and it's a shame, really. But then I think that's probably true with most faiths. And of course, what's happening in Iran does need a change of, needs democracy for the Iranian people. And of course, all the amount of sponsored terrorism. But of course, we invented terrorism in the West. We imported it to these countries, so the whole thing is a whole messed up situation. And of course, people like Keir Starmer, even probably Donald Trump to a certain degree, they probably do want a world war, because when we have world war and a war situation, that's when these people in power make a lot of money. Because let's face it, when economies go down, wars happen, because that boosts the economy and makes the small percentage of people that own everything a lot of money. So it's all about money, 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 and it's not about doing goodness for humanity. And we should be anti-war, really, because let's face it, nothing fundamentally changes. And it's true in the Fallout series at the beginning, when he talks about war doesn't change and so forth. Can't remember the whole thing. It's not a good thing. And then Hadsdak says, "Child, sausage fingers is not my king." No, I'm not a big fan of Charles, really, either. So I wouldn't fundamentally say he's my king. And we've not had a true decent monarchy for a long time. Fair enough to the late Queen. But again, these are people in very privileged situations in the world. So they don't know what fundamentally the average person goes through. And to be fair, I come from quite a privileged background, because many people who come around to my house will say to me, F me, Braggy or Andy, you live in a really big fucking house, and I do. Then they see the size of my garden, and they say the same thing. They'll go, Jesus, you got a massive bloody big garden. And I do have a big garden. But at the same time, I also understand, because my background with my parents, well, at least on my dad's side more than my mum's side, is working class. My dad, my late dad Cyril, grew up in pure poverty back in the 30s and the 40s. Poverty you can't imagine today, because he always used to tell me how, because he had, I think, 6 brothers and 1 sister, he had to share a bed with his 5 brothers. Can you imagine having one bed between 6 of you? Until this age, when you left house, when you became a man and you went off on your own journey. You can't believe that, can you? And I'm sure it probably does happen these days still, where a single parent or family that don't have a lot of money have to have their 3 or 4 kids share one bed. So things haven't fundamentally changed, but I've always respected that side of my past. And my dad was successful in his life because he worked hard, and he made a difference for a lot of people. But it never changed him. It never changed him and spoilt him. But Dad was not frivolous with money. He wouldn't go out and buy an expensive watch or have he had nice cars, but he didn't have really ridiculously nice cars. He had a practical car, whether it may have been a Mercedes or a BMW. It was a practical car for what he did as a job, because he was a managing director and a chairman of his own company. So from that point of view, I come from a wealthy background, and I come from a privileged background, but I never ever let it forget. And because my dad wanted to instill on me when I was at a young age as a teenager that you have to be responsible for your own income. So when I got to the age of 13, a lot of people, my dad said to me, you know, that's it, son. I said, I'm not going to give you any more pocket money anymore. You can get a job at work Saturday mornings, and you can work in your holidays, you know, during half terms and go in and get work experience, and we'll actually pay you money. And so from 13 years old, you know, when I was still a child, I was in engineering. I was being put on, and I first started on a bandsaw. I was responsible for cutting billets, and back in those days, we used to cut our own billets. And a billet is fundamentally a length or size of metal, and then that gets deburred, and then that goes into a box for the next stage of actually either, you know, mostly it would be, well, it would be both depending on the bar situation, but if it was rectangular bar, then that'll be for a milling machine. And if it was round bar billet, then that'll be for a lathe and a computer numerical controlled lathe. So from that very early age in my life, my dad, you know, made sure that I learned the responsible thing about money. And from the age of 13, I did work pretty much every Saturday morning. And then I did end up, when I left school, working for my dad's company, even though I didn't want to be there because I wanted to do my own thing. And I wasn't really allowed to do that. I wanted to join the army, but my dad was adamant that I was never going to join the army, and I wish I did now. I regret that because I think I would have really loved it, and I think I would have had a lot of experience and learned a lot of skills, and I wouldn't probably be in this situation where I am now if I went down that route. So everything happens for a reason in life to a certain degree. So just go back to your comments. So Bruce Dog says, yeah, Charles seems to support the same people that would behead him if he had a chance. Yeah, I mean, he's not the worst king, but he's not the best king either. So, yeah. And then Braggy, have you ever heard of the story of the jester that was at the Battle of Hastings and he won a duel against a Saxon? I think I have heard the story, but I just can't recollect the story. And if I had a pen on me, I'd write that down and create a story out of that. So I'll remember that. And I did write the other day about the individual that killed St. Olaf, and I've got that written down, and I've already generated a script for that video. And then Bruce Dog says, he was so excited he charged the Saxon lines and was never seen again. Again, there's a very funny TV advert on at the moment where it's like a medieval battle. And then and it looks like Vikings. There's quite a few medieval adverts at the moment for various TV companies and so forth, and brands. And a lone warrior charges forward on his own. The next thing you see is like 1,000 arrows flying in the sky, and then you turn around to see the line of the men, and then all you can hear in the background is somebody dying from a terrible death. So that's a funny advert. Then Hazadak says, I'm okay, Braggy. Well, thumbs up. Excellent. And then Hazadak says, Vanguard and Black Rock have their fingers in all the pies. Well, they do. And of course, Black Rock isn't fundamentally a very good company from my perspective. And I don't fundamentally like Vanguard either too much. I've heard some bad things about them, but that could be wrong. But yeah, but they do have companies like that. I don't know why, because I think the medieval thing is such a popular thing at the moment. Yeah, so please do leave some more comments and any questions, then I'll read them out to you. So last night, what did I do yesterday? Let's go back then 24 hours. So, yeah, so the last time you saw me last night, I did a live stream. And then during the live stream, I had a message from my neighbours, Mick and Maureen, who don't watch my videos on YouTube, but they do watch the videos I put out on Instagram, which I'm trying to get a little bit more back into. And then they was going to the pub at 8:30, which is why I had to end the live stream and leave them. So I very quickly got a shower. I got changed, left the house. I went over to see them. I think I got around there about quarter past 8, and they got like. I went in the house and then I saw Mick was fast asleep, like this, snoring his head off. So I didn't want to do what I did a few weeks back when he was in the van, and I just kind of walked up. I got a bad reputation for scaring people, even though, and I like. There's a little bit of me. I don't know why. I like to scare people. I used to do it to the carers when I had carers look after my dad. They'll be in the kitchen, washing the pots or doing some work or whatever, ironing or getting the medicine ready. And I'll just like appear, and sometimes I go woo like that, and then they'll jump out the show, and I scared the shit out, the hell out of them. And then one time I scared another carer. I was in the kitchen. I was waiting for a carer to come along. I used to have an afternoon carer for a few hours, and then we had a morning carer for 30 minutes, and I think we had an evening carer. So they'll get my dad up and they'll put my dad to bed. And I think at some point we had 2 or 3 nights where we had a carer here overnight. So I had a night off to concentrate to sleep, because, it does wear you away if you're caring 24/7. And literally at one point I was doing 120 hours a week just being there for my dad. All the time. And it was very draining at times. And sometimes I was just so shattered, that mentally and physically just worn away. So I remember one time I was this is when I had a smaller kitchen table, because at the moment in my kitchen I've got my old dining room table, which is a nice wooden table. So there I was on the kitchen table. I was sitting in the chair, and I had a load of newspaper on top of the table, and I was de-rusting one of my medieval maces. You've seen it on camera, the one where I talk about, would you prefer to take a medieval mace, or would you prefer to take a war axe into battle? Because I got 2 maces, but one of them you're not really seeing much on camera. And I think because I've been doing quite a few of these close-up shots of all the equipment I've got, I think those have been quite popular. And I'm really pleased to see the video for the 10,000 celebration doing really well as well. So I hope you've enjoyed. If you've not seen today's video, do after this live stream go and check it out, because I do showing, and for about 10 minutes we do a close-up look. It may be even longer, but I can't remember the length at the moment of the video, of the Romano-British sword, which is over there, but I just don't have arms long enough, and I'm quite comfy sitting down. So I think what I will do is go through all my weapons individually and film videos on all those weapons, a close look, where we have a close look at it. I talk about them, and I think those videos would be quite cool for the channel. What do you think? I think that's a good idea. So there I was, and this will be, it's got to be like six years ago, maybe 7 years ago. It was night time, and I was waiting for this carer to come at, I think it was about 7 o'clock or 7:30, and at that time some of my medieval equipment has got really rusty, because for a long time I left it down the workshop. And I did get broken into at one point, and I lost one of my really nice Viking helmets, which somebody's probably got in their house in Derby somewhere, and they stole it from me, as well as a few other bits. And I really do, but I got the cheap plates, because at the time I was repairing the helmet and making some hinges for the cheap plates. So I'm really annoyed over that. So if you know anybody in Derby who's got a Viking helmet with some brass on the eyepieces, that's my helmet, and that's stolen. And I told the police about it, and they did absolutely nothing. So there I was, sitting at the table, had some sandpaper, had a wire brush, and I was just de-rusting this medieval mace. Then I was going to treat the handle with some linseed oil, which is really good for wood. So, and in those days, I got a side door and a front door, and I used to use the side door, but I don't like the side door, because it's a very vulnerable situation if you just open up the door, and of course, and there's no outer door, and so I've stopped using that door, and in fact, it's just locked off, and there's that many bolts and things on the door, you can never get in. And so I now use my front door, because I got a door and I got another front door, because if you just got one side door, and if you're so used to open that side door to the fact that the only people that use it are your friends and your family, and then you open it and you don't know who they are, they could get in the house so quickly. So that's why I stopped using that door, because it's a vulnerability. But also, if you've got a door in your house, make sure you have some chains on your door and some latches, because do you realise how simple it is for somebody who's got experience with, picking a lock just to get in your front door? And so easily. I mean, even these days, you can buy a lock picking gun for 20, 30 pounds or dollars. You just shove it in the lock and it just picks the lock for you. And then next minute, you're in that door. I mean, I know quite a bit about lock picking. There is a really good channel called The Lock Picking Lawyer. I used to watch quite a bit. He also used to do funny videos about master locks. You put a master lock on the table, and you just think for a minute, and suddenly it just opens up because they're so useless. So yeah, always make sure you've got chains on your door and you've got some bolts, because if you don't, you're so vulnerable. And of course, we live in a day and age where people want to get in your house and steal your goods. And of course, every door and every window in my house has got bolts on it and latches, so that they can't be forced open from the outside either. So being safe in your building and your property is a really good idea. So there I was sitting at a table. I'm cleaning this medieval mace, getting the rust off so I can oil it back up and treat it. Then the doorbell rings, so I open the door. It's a carer who I've seen a few times, but not very often. And she walks in. So don't mind me, I'm just doing a job, I says. So I go and sit back down, and all she sees on the table is a massive medieval mace. And she said to me, she looked horrified. She goes, "What's that there?" I said, "Oh, that's a medieval mace." So they use it to beat people up, for fun, re-enactment. And I don't think she understood what that was. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I do re-enactments, and I'm on YouTube, so it's one of my many weapons in the house." And then I then said to her, I said, "Well, don't you have a medieval mace in your house?" I said, "No." "Well, perhaps you need to get one, duck." Anyway, so she was quite scared at the time, but because I explained what it was, and then she was quite happy about it. Let's go back to your comments, and I will continue talking about what I've been doing. And then Bruce Dog says, "Gear, I was AFK when you answered about the jester. It's okay though, as I rewound the stream." Yeah, if I had a pen on me, I would write that down. But I will remember that, and I will. I think that'll be a really good story to tell. And I think it'll be quite an easy story to narrate and actually make into a little folk story, and a little, and tell the story. But of course, there's always have been individuals, and I've done this myself in reenactment terms, when you're in the line and you're getting to the point where you're going to get melee, and I just ran forward on my own, and then that encourages more people to run. So as soon as one person runs, and he just then decided that, I don't know enough shooting on my musket, I'm just going to run into the Confederates now because it's too hot, I'm too knackered, and I want to lie down for a bit, and pretend to be dead on the floor, or just crawl around in agony, because not enough people do that. And at one point when I did a battle reenactment, because I used to do a bit of a routine where I pretend to get shot, and I'll be getting up, staggering, falling over, falling back down again, I made this lady vicar cry. She said, and she came up to me after and just said, "That was so moving, that was. You got shot, and you got it back up, and you fell over, then you crawled for a bit, and you was in agony, then you shouted out for your mother, and then you got back up again." But the only reason why I was doing that, and a lot of time I did it, because you'll be in a battlefield, and it's a big battlefield, and there'll be one tree, and it's 30 degrees out, so I'll be crawling and dying to get to the shade. Give her the shade, please. And then I'll, pretend to be wounded and lean against the tree and drink some water, and I look like I've been shot, and grunting and making a few noises. But I did that so I can get to the only shade on the battlefield. And on a hot day, when you're wearing layers of wool, you have a nice, cotton shirt on in the 19th century, a waistcoat. You'll have, either your sack coat or an over. Even sometimes, you may even be in your greatcoat as well. But, normally have that on the back of my backpack. And then you have a lot of weight, and I used to carry everything they carried. So, yeah. But yeah, I think that'll make a really good story. So then King Edward. So hello, King Edward. How are you today? Please do let us all know how you are. Have you had a good day? Well, Monday. Monday already. At least I think it's a Monday. And he says hi. So hi, King Edward. Say hi, folks, to King Edward. And Upper 10 says, hey, King Edward, the turbulent, Neil, Giant Slayer, tank. Oh, yes. Big wave for everybody. And then King Edward says, hi, Offer 10. And then Offer 10 says, one thing I've noticed is that when searching for Viking or Norse people, the information is limited or short if you search in English compared to Norwegian, which is a real shame. Well, yes, but there are quite a lot of Norse pagan groups out there. And there's certainly quite a lot of groups that regulate and vet people and don't want the far right side of things and the anger and the hatred and the very small minority of people that think that's acceptable in Norse paganism, which is not. It really isn't. And I recently got invited to join when I have, but it's just so overwhelming because there's so many people who said hello to me. And then you have to end all your little chats with a fist this way and a green heart and another fist. And I can't keep up. And I got enough things to do, so it's just, I'll just be ignoring it a little bit, and I may just, and I did say hello to somebody the other day, and getting new members all the time. So I think there's a hell of a lot of people that are into Norse paganism and being Norse. I've got to take my jacket off because I'm roasting my nuts off here, which is an old English saying. And then King Edward says, I'm fine, thank you. Just finished washing up. Oh, yes, I did a bit of washing up earlier. And I've got to start having my heater coming on. I'm boiling the water every day, so I've always got hot water, I think. So that's my new job. And I've been throwing stuff away. So going back to what I did yesterday, though, after the live stream. So I went down, I went over Mick and Maureen's, and I let them know what I've been up to. Because, because I've been out on adventures and I've had a wild time, as always, being a Viking. And then my friend Maureen drove down. We went to my favourite pub, which is about 900 years old. The building goes back to I think goes back to at least the 12th century, but was built in the 13th century. So it's got a little bit of both. But it's amazing to think about it, that we're in a medieval building, and that's my local pub. And of course, two of my friends of mine, Martin and Maria. So if you're ever in Derby, do please go to the Abbey Inn, and you get really good cheap beer. And they're also about to start doing food, and the food is really nice. And do give them support and love from Northworthy. You're not allowed to use your mobile in the pub, and there's a non-swearing ban. But it's nice because you get a time off from your phone. You just got to respect. That's down to the brewery themselves. Got this weird non-phone policy, but I mean, to be honest, I don't actually mind really because I'm on my phone all the time, because I'm either using my phone to make a thumbnail, or I'm looking at my stats, or answering comments when I can. It's quite nice not to take your phone down and have a few hours away from your phone. So went down, we had I think they bought the first round, so I had a nice pint of bitter. That was a little bit tangy, but I don't think the barrel settled yet. So it's not the best. It was all right, but it could have been slightly better. But then again, the bitter beer from Samuel Smith's hasn't been so brilliant over the last few years, to be fair. It used to be really, really nice. But it's just whether the breweries changed the recipe or whatever, it's just not as good as it used to be. And we sat inside, and it's lovely. You're in this old medieval building, and it's got a massive fireplace. And I got to go down at some point in the autumn time and teach Martin how to light a fire. So I said, I'm going to supply you with kindling, as I get a lot of that from my garden, so that's not going to be a problem. I'm going to put some bags together because they got a budget when it comes to logs, but they won't have a lot of money for kindling. And naturally, you want good stuff, dry stuff, and I can provide that. Then we had another round, which actually Martin, the landlord, brought, and we went and had the stout from Samuel Smith's, and I love a stout. It was very nice, actually. I'm not a massive stout drinker, I don't often drink Guinness because it can be a little bit heavy. But I thought, well, I need to get some iron in me. And so I had a pint of stout. And it was just nice to have a bit of a chat. And just to, but again, it's been 3 nights in a row I've been down the pub, which is quite rare for me because normally, if I go in Derby once a week, I normally go for a couple of pints in the badminton or Babington. I always call it the Bagminton. It's not, it's a Babington. And it's just a little bit cheaper than the other Wetherspoons pub, and it's a little bit more rustic, and the crowd is a little bit more interesting, you could say. But there's a very nice lady there, a transgender person called Jade, and she's a very good friend of mine, and always gives me a very warm welcome. And she's an expert on the beer, so you always say, "Oh, Andy, I watched your live stream the other night. That was good." Oh, right, nice. And we kind of been talking about perhaps doing a collab because she has a YouTube channel and she's just done a brewery course and wants to set up her own business making beer. And she really is a beer connoisseur. So she always says, because a lot of the staff, they don't understand beer. So I always say, well, what have you got on the moment, Jade? What do you recommend? Then she'll say to me, what have you thought about trying this beer? And she also knows that I video the beer and I review those beers. And I got quite a lot of those videos to actually finish off making and do a voiceover for, which I will do. So you will be seeing those in the future. I got so much on. So, she'll say to me, well, let's try a pint of this and I'll give you a taster. Always gives me a taster of the beer. So you pour a little glass out. You try that one. That's not bad. What about this one? We'll pour out a taste of that. Yeah, so let's go for this then. And then she always places the beer in front of so she knows because I'm going to take a photograph of the beer pump and the beer in front of it. So really nice individual. Although I was on a dating app a few weeks back because I'm on a few dating apps, even though I probably shouldn't be, but I am just out of curiosity because I don't fundamentally know the status of my relationship when it comes to, all that. I think I'm at the stage now where I'm just thinking that I'm now single, because in order to be in a relationship, you actually need to be in a relationship with somebody that actually communicates with you. And without trying to be negative about the whole situation, it does help. And, having silence, or it's like I shared with my friend I've been going out with, I'm trying to put it in a way which is don't get into it too much, because I wrote a lot of poems and a lot of sonnets for my girlfriend Abby. That's probably too much information already. She sees this, she'll tell me off and told me to take the live stream down. I actually did the second one I did after I deleted the first one about 3 weeks ago. I did download it on my computer though, so I could actually edit it and edit the bit out where I talk about it. So I shared some more of the sonnets, and all I got was a thumbs up. I shared 5 lovely sonnets I found that I'd not shared with her and gave her. And then I also, a couple of days later, I shared a screenshot of the channel having 1.5 million views over 4 weeks. And all I got was just callback. Well, and I try not to be negative about all that because, you try to be positive in that situation, but that's no way to live your life and be in a relationship. I'm sure you agree. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Is that fundamentally the way to be in a relationship? Is that good communication? And I know that I've been very challenging myself, and in the past she suggested a lot of things I should be doing, and I just completely ignored her. It doesn't really help the situation, to be fair. Because I haven't decluttered the house, I haven't fundamentally sorted out the garden, and it was. I've not moved away from Derby yet, which she wants me to do. I'm kind of like in this limbo situation in my life, and I don't know what to do about it, which is why I did create that video 6 weeks ago where I talked about it. And you can see I'm fundamentally troubled over the whole situation. But it's lovely that I've got your guys' support. And let's face it, as men, and majority of audience is men, we've all been through these problems in relationships. that at times can be challenging and difficult. And when somebody turns around to you and says, I can't support you anymore, that's like a massive red flag that says to me, it's time to move on, even though I don't fundamentally want to, but at the same time, I've got to be truthful to myself. So very conflicted amongst all of that. But I would love to hear your thoughts. But is that the right situation to be when you're in a relationship? You should have, and I'm sure you agree, good communication. And I like to think that I'm a good communicator, even though I got no doubt I've got my own flaws. I know that, and I don't always bring it to be. I probably can be a bit too I, and not us, and we and our. But it's because I've been single for so long, I just got used to my own company. But no, we're moving away from that, and what I'm just trying to be in this whole situation is positive. And if you're going on a dating site, you should really fundamentally end your relationship first. But at the same time, I think to myself, well, what's even the point of actually talking to her about it? Because all it's going to do is just bring up more noise, and I've had enough noise. And so, yeah. Not that I really ever in my life ever had any success really out of dating apps. I don't think they fundamentally work for most people. So mostly in my life, I met girlfriends through actually meeting people. Being in a pub, talking to some girl, going on a date, you start going out, so forth, or friends. I've had a lot of girlfriends on camp who I've met. But yeah. Yeah, and Hasdak says, stop worrying about it. Yeah, I'm sure you can see I'm thinking about it from my expression and my body language. The right one will pop up when you aren't expecting it. Yeah. And I did match with somebody really nice the other day who's definitely got all the qualities I'm looking for in a relationship. But I did, on a couple of dating apps, I did use AI-generated images of myself, and I made a mistake there. So, and I got told off today by a woman called Ashley, who I matched with. She said, your pictures are very heavily AI altered, He said, yeah. And your description is AI generated because I work in AI and I can tell. So I've actually gone and created a new description with my own thoughts and not using AI, and reverted back to images of myself where I don't smile. But it's very easy to go on AI and say, right, improve this picture of myself and make me smile. Pretty amazing how it can do that. Because it knows I'm into like Vikings, it keeps putting Viking backgrounds in the background. And you're thinking, no, I'm not asked for that. I'm not asked for fucking long shit to be in the back of the picture. AI, pardon my French. And then when I keep making my thumbnails in AI, it keeps putting the text at the edge, and it's not. I got to tell it to be centralized, and still it keeps sometimes putting the text at the edge, and I'm cutting off letters. That's irritating. Because I don't know what makes better thumbnails myself, if I do it through thumbnail tool or AI generated ones. But what I'm fundamentally doing with like this video, I will get the thumbnail I created for the video itself, the live stream, and then I'll just run that thumbnail, just improve the quality and the picture. I'll then have the basic thumbnail of me holding a helmet and then put some text on it. So it keeps it original to the thumbnail. But yeah. But yeah. So then we had another beer last night, and I think we got in quite late. I did get talking to a guy with a mustache who had a girlfriend with red hair, and by chance he was a war gamer. So it went very quickly into talk about wargaming, and it became quite a niche talk. And he turned out to be a police officer, and he was telling me a funny story. He was at a house doing a job as a police officer, and there was a skip outside, and it had all this foam from excess building. It's like a thick foam you put on walls or insulation. And he kept on looking at it, and his fellow police officer was working with him. He said, what's the matter with you? I said, you keep looking at this skip. He says, look at that foam, he says. And he kept looking at the foam, and the other police officer didn't quite understand what was going on. And you were like thinking, yeah, that because it's good stuff for making scenery out of. And then he told me after his shift, he went back to the house, knocked on the door, and he said, hello, I was around here earlier as a police officer. Can I have some of that foam out of your skip? Is it being thrown away? And the woman said, yeah, you can help yourself. So it was quite nice. And then I was asking about the history of the building, and I was explaining about bricks, because it has a big brick fireplace. And I really wish I could show you a picture of it. But if I did that, it will bring the old pub into dispute with Humphrey, the owner, the multi-millionaire, he's nearly a billionaire owner of Samuel Smith's, and they'll close the pub down. But I'm sure if you just type in the Abbey Inn, there's lots of photographs from the past that show that. And I just don't want to do that because I like the landlord and landlady. You're both friends of mine. And I did get told off for taking back a wild woman back to my house on Saturday night, but nothing happened. It was just friends, we just hung about. We drank a bottle and a half of spirits, and she fell asleep at one point. She had a little dog with her, to look after her dog. I'm not a dog person, but then I did reply lots of comments, edit videos, but she was quite wild. And then she told me off for having a messy ass. So I was quite thankful over that, because it's good to get grounded now and again and be told off. But of course, I just kind of said, well, don't let your girlfriend know that you got a wild woman coming around your ass. And she's a topless model. That's what she does on websites. And then men pay her to see her breasts. And I had an eyeful already. And she had the most weird pants on as well, which she told me about and had to show me. And I said to her, well, no point me showing my underwear, but it's just standard boxer shorts. But I didn't fancy her, thank God. She's too old for me at 46. I want to go out with somebody in the 30s, preferably. I mean, that's my ideal age group. Somebody in the mid-30s would be, ideal. And then this week she's off to Ibiza to hang about with an ex-lover of hers who's a multimillionaire and rents out Mercedes and Bentleys and Rolls Royce to people. And apparently he's got 4 yachts. But I'd imagine she's probably being used for a body, if you ask me. But I didn't want to say anything, because if I told her that, she would probably just told me off, for having an opinion. She's very forthright. That's what I liked about her. Her name's Jolene. I like the song. So we'll see whether. And she's already sent me some cheeky photographs of herself, and I'm not used to that, I must say. I mean, I don't understand why men always send out pictures of the privates. Oh no, nothing wrong with older ladies. I mean, and she's younger than me, to be fair, at least 2.5 years. But I just don't want to settle down with somebody that age, because I still want to have children. And if you're 46, it's a bit difficult to have children. And if you already had children, you probably don't want to have more children. So that's why I'm looking at somebody, who's fundamentally in the early 30s to mid 30s to settle down with. And let's face it, a lot of women at that age really do love and admire older men, because we've got our shit together. We've been through all those trials. We own our own house. Not that I could ever get married and lose the property because of the situation it's in, because it's protected, with it being in a trust. So in that sense, I'm quite safeguarded, but I also got to look out, because fundamentally I'm quite wealthy, on paper, not in physical form at the moment. I've also got to be careful of gold diggers as well. So again, it's about marrying and finding that right person, which I thought I have done, and perhaps I will. Perhaps it still may work out with my girlfriend, but we'll see. And some days I think, well, I do have a girlfriend, and some days I think, I don't have a girlfriend. But that's the old confliction. But I do love her to bits, and she is a wonderful, wonderful person. But she's probably like me, a bit stubborn, and not used to being in a relationship, and got her own problems. And again, what she asked me to do was not to be negative and talk negative about her, because as she said to me, if I talk negative about her, I'm talking negative about myself. So I'm trying to be positive if I do mention her. But again, within the whole scene of the channel, talking, because the channel was also about me and myself. I got to fundamentally talk about these things because it's who I am. So I got back from the pub last night. I know I'm losing track with my mind, and that's my ADHD because my mind's got a million things going on at the same time. I had some dinner. I made I had some roast. I had some pork, and I marinated it in a whole jar of Worcester sauce to the point where it's gone all black with the marinade, and there's a little bit of honey in there. So I marinated that on Friday. I had 2 more pieces left, so I cooked that. I think I fried it, and I put some chips in my air fryer. And normally I get some oil and spin it around in a bowl, and then just seeing your comment, and then I had that, and I watched a bit of TV. I think I was continuing watching that documentary on Jaws, but then I felt a little bit tired, so I must have got to about 1 o'clock, and I went to bed. But then about 3:30, I woke up, and then I wasn't tired. So I got up at 3:30 in the morning, watched a bit of TV, answered a few comments, made a few thumbnails. And then I stayed up for about 8 hours. I got to about 1 o'clock this afternoon and I went back to sleep again. And I had about 4 hours sleep, woke up about 5, 6 o'clock. But some days I do get my sleep in. I don't always sleep in one go. Some days I do. Some nights I will get 7 or 8 hours if I'm very lucky. But some nights I'll just get 2, 3 hours sleep and that's it. I'm just fully awake, and I know no matter what I try, I won't get back to sleep again. So I go and do something. And then I was thinking last night about what she said on Saturday night about the house. I was thinking, well, because over that way I've got my dad's old study, which is just full of boxes of my stuff at the moment. So I'm kind of thinking to myself that I'm going to empty that room out and actually make it an actual bedroom, because I'm in where I'm in now is like a massive room, and my bed's in the corner, and I've got a settee here, and a TV and another TV for making videos on. So I'm just thinking about actually having a dedicated bedroom and just having nothing in the room apart from my bed. So I think I might do that. And then that'll be incorporating another room in the house that I could use and not have it full of junk. And then put all those boxes, go through it, get rid of some of the crap, keep the stuff I want. And then put that into my old bedroom, which is already full of boxes. But at least if it's all in one room, then I can slowly deal with that room. And then the idea of that room is to convert it into a wargaming room. Then I can think about bringing that onto the channel. So that's my project behind the scenes this week, is to actually take all the stuff out and move the bed in here and just have an actual dedicated, bedroom for just sleeping and nothing else. And I will have a TV in there because I like to, lie in my bed and watch TV. Because I love sitting on a sofa, but some days you want to lie down, and I don't like lying down on a sofa too much. So then I'm going to make this room into like an upstairs lounge, is my idea. And I like the thought of that because it also incorporates and takes another room out of use and into use. Because at the moment it's just full of boxes of stuff. And if I could do that, then it's more progress. And in that whole cycle of going through those boxes, I will get another room used. But yeah, then eventually when I get my old bedroom set up as a wargaming room, because I must have between 50 and 100,000 figures, and not all of them are painted. It'll be nice to have and there'd be room in there to have a small war game table, and then we could demonstrate and actually represent, like we could demonstrate the Battle of Hastings and talk about it in the sense of war game figures, and even learn some rules, and even perhaps even figure out a live stream I could do with somebody, and we could actually do some wargaming and sit down and do that and get back into the hobby again, which I'd really love to do. So, but that's going to take me a while, and it's already taken me a while to get to this stage. But I've got to concentrate more on the house and perhaps just slow down on the content a little bit and get some of the priorities right in my life. Because I'm just concentrating, because on my ADHD, which I most probably have but not been diagnosed yet, I just get so super focused on things like content all the time. So, that's the super focus is just on content. But then when I'm doing that, when I become super focused on one thing, I tend to forget everything else, I mean, and then I don't tidy up, I don't hoover, I don't dust the house because it's content. So perhaps I just need to, keep making content, keep filming content, but just slightly slow down a little bit. It's what I'm thinking about, but not slowing down too much where you see that on camera. So still doing the live streams, because I think these are a great way for me to interact with the audience, but also it also helps that journey to get the 4,000 hours. So hopefully we can become monetized again. And we are getting there with it. It's going up every week. So the one thing you guys can really do for me is actually watch the long form content, because unfortunately the minutes from the shorts minutes don't count, and it's a bit crazy. The views count. I'm probably shy from 1 million views, but I still need 9 million views from shorts content, which is not so easy to get, I don't think. So if you're at home and you're bored, watch some of the long content, even to the point where if you're going out, just put it on your TV and just play a play series for me, and then your TV is watching the long format videos, and it helps us to get those 4,000 hours. And I do that myself. So when I'm going out, I'll put my TV on, I'll select one of the playlists, like the Egil Thorson playlist, or the one about the animal folk stories. This is a really nice playlist, and I'll just let that play for 2-3 hours, and then it builds up that time, and it really does help. If we all did that, then we'll be monetized. And of course, being a content creator, you got to try to make an income out of it, because it's a full-time job, and of course a full-time job, you need an income from it. And of course, that income means we can invest in more equipment, we can have more helmets, we can go to places, I can fund the fuel for my car. But I do have a really big vehicle with a big engine, and it's not the most cheapest of vehicles, being a 2.4 turbo Volvo, which is a beast of a vehicle, but a really good vehicle. It's a bit old, it's 2009 reg, but I must say I'm really impressed by Scandinavian vehicles. And I never, before this, ever driven a Volvo, and I must say I really like it. It's high up though, but it is a beast. So and of course all that helps as well. And as soon as we get to 3,000 subscribers, we can start having super chats again. And again, all it helps. But of course, I want to make money from the adverts rather than you guys funding the channel, because that's what YouTube is there for. And over the last 3 years, they've given away $70 billion. So it'd be nice to have a slice of that pie, and then we can fund the channel. But I will be at some point independently wealthy, to the point where I don't have to work. But of course, everything takes time when it comes to inheritance and so forth. Which is, I'm not trying to give out too much information. But if you knew everything about all that, you'll be like going, oh, bloody hell. But yeah, but I intend to use that for the advantage to go to places, go on holidays, film at amazing places, meet amazing people, and add more content and more variety to the channel. So we'll go back to some of your comments. Yes. So note wrong with older ladies. Well, no, because older ladies have lots of experience. But I just don't want to settle down with somebody my age. Not if I still want to have children in my life in the next 5 years, before I get too old, and it gets to the point where I'm saying, well, I'm too old now. It would be cool to have children at this age, but of course I want to carry on my DNA. And if it gets too stressful, I can hire a good young-looking, attractive nanny. Joking, of course. I don't mind what she looks like or age, or maybe part-time. But you know what I mean. And then Hasdak says, you'll have to go to Thailand and get yourself a bride, Braggy. Well, yes, I've heard quite a lot of people do that. And you do get matched on dating apps quite a lot with Thai women and Vietnamese women, and some of them are quite gorgeous. But yeah, and why have one bride when you can have two? But I suppose that's being greedy. So we're not allowed to go down that route in modern society, are we? But then again, would you want more than one wife? And then Hashtag says, you'll be very tired with a Thai bride. I don't know, Braggy, but you'll have to have the parents living with you. Really? Oh, right. Oh, the house is big enough, but that could always be a last resort. if things don't work out in my current situation, and I don't find somebody else in the UK, like I say, I am slightly talking to somebody from Sheffield who's very nice and very much aligned with me, who I am. But I don't like it when people don't talk enough. I'm very I want to get things sorted too fast. But some days you've got to have patience. And of course, gone are the days when you can go to Russia and get a Russian bride. Perhaps I have to go to Ukraine and get a Ukrainian wife. Because some of the Ukrainian women are very gorgeous, to be fair. And of course, they've got a lot of Viking heritage in Ukraine. Then Hashtag says, my spare room has got my model collection in there and my mountain bikes and car spares. That's what a spare room is there for. I've got a mountain bike. If we ever get rid of it, you can have it. It's a Vulcan. Not with pointy ears though. I took it out of an extra skip, but it just needs a tyre at the back pumping up, and then I can start using it. And I've certainly got enough bike helmets I've took out of bins and charky waste bins and skips. So one of them's bound to fit me. And then what sort of models do you have? Are you into your wargaming models? Are you into your plastic kits? I'll tell you a story about Amazon. So I like Tamiya models, and about 3 or 4 years back, I bought a model of a German World War II vehicle. But when they sent it to me, and this will horrify model collectors, it was sent in with the box. But they slapped the label on the box and did not put the box, the model in an envelope or the box. So the box came with just the box and a massive label on the box. And of course, I was horrified because I wasn't buying the model kit to make. I was just buying the model kit to put on my shelf so that my pile of shame can become bigger and bigger. And so I complained about it to Amazon and said, look, I just bought this model. It's not coming in any packaging, and they slapped a massive label on the box, ruining the box. I'm buying the model to keep the box as it is, as a collector's piece. So I want my money back, or you send me another one. So we agreed that they send me another one, and they did the same thing again. So literally, it's like them. You bought this book, and instead of putting the book in a blooming envelope or in a box, you just stick a label on the box and send the book like that. But in this case, the model box with a massive label on it. And of course, I'm not going through the old route of peeling the label off, because why should I? And I explained to them, model collectors don't always buy models to make the model. They buy the models to have the kit on the shelf, because that's the thing, isn't it? It's and it is classed as your pile of shame, like the tens of thousands of unpainted wargame figures I have in every scale. So I complained about it, and they said, well, we'll send you another one, and they did the same thing again. So I complained again for the second time, and they said, look, you've done the same thing again. So this should have been put in a paper envelope or in a cardboard box and sent me without a booming bloody label on the box, ruining the box, because people sometimes buy the item, they want the box on the item, and what you don't want, I'm having a rant here about Amazon, they don't want to get the item with a big bloody postage label on. So they agreed again to send me a third one, and for the third time in the row, they did the same blooming thing again. So I got 3 of the same model with the model kit in the box, and I've never made the models because I don't want to make the models, even though I've got 3 of the same model. It's a half track, German half track. So the third time I said, well, just give me my money back. You're useless. But they didn't understand the old concept of that. And then Hashtag says, I'm down the allotment a lot. It takes up a lot of my time. Yeah, I mean, I certainly down my garden do have a vegetable patch, which is a bit wild at the moment, and there's a lot of stuff to be burnt on it, which I'm making a big bonfire pile for the autumn time. And at some point, I'm going to invest in a rotavator, and then I'm going to rotivate it up, and then next year, hopefully, if I get my act together, I can plant potatoes. And I mean, I could do it by spade, but I just fancy getting a rotavator because it's got to be 20 meters by 6 meters, and it's a big space to spade. And I just don't have the physical fitness and the time to spend hours bloody spading it all over. So petrol rotavator motivate it all up eventually. Is my plan. And then I've got to get in my garden tomorrow and do a lot of debrambling to fill my brown bins up, because I got 3 brown bins and I need to be filled up. So that's my mission for tomorrow. And then I'll continue last night. Yeah, so then, yeah. So I did a bit of editing of videos today. I wasn't going to think about filming, but I've been so tired today. It's unbelievable. So I think the weekend is catching up with me. Which is okay, you know. I've had a good weekend. I've had a lively weekend. And perhaps this weekend coming up, it may be a bit quieter. But we'll go back to your comments. And then Hadzadak says, I've had to stop collecting them. I've run out of space at Offerton. Well, that's the problem when you collect things, you do run out of space. And then, you know, what people don't understand when you collect things and they say to you, oh, you need to declutter and get rid of stuff. Well, you don't want to get rid of the stuff you collected and you have and you like. But there's always other space in the house, under your stairs, you know, find a cupboard, put some shelves up. I mean, adding shelves to your walls is an amazing way to have more space in your corridors, so you can put more things you collect. So you could always find space if you're just clever enough. But, you know, I certainly know that because I got that many boxes full of war game figures I've got to go through. And because of various things with what went on in the last few years, I literally packed everything up and I moved it down to my workshop for safekeeping, which in the long run was a waste of time, but at least in my own right, it made me feel that my belongings were safe. But then it's all come back now and I got to go through it all. So I literally was in a mad rush at one point 2-3 years back when I just shoved everything in as many boxes I could find. And so, you know, some of the things that went in the boxes will need repairing. But that's the beautiful thing about model making, is that if you damage a model, well, you can repair it. And that's a part of the journey, isn't it? So Hadzadak says, old Matchbox, Airfix, mostly older kit and Japanese cars at Braggy. Oh, cool. Yeah, I definitely got a bit of Airfix. I definitely got a few Matchbox cars and toys. Don't have any Japanese cars. And then Hadzadak says, I've got over 400 box kits. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot more than I've got. You know, I've got quite a bit of Warhammer that's boxed up still. Especially classic Warhammer from the 80s. But I don't have that many. And then you think to yourself, well, should I open that box up and actually paint it? But you know, it's like I got a lot of classic 1980s Warhammer figures unpainted. And as soon as I paint them, it's going to vastly reduce the value. And of course, some of these models can go for a hell of a lot of money. Not that I'm interested in the value. So I'll have to think about displaying them in cabinets. It'd be nice to invest and have some really nice cabinet space to show everything, but also have it in a space where it's dust free. Which is why really I need to have a nice extension built on the house and have a nice dedicated big room to it, and maybe an indoor swimming pool and a sauna, and a dedicated space as a gym. Of course, it's a job for another day, and is it worth spending the money? I don't know. I mean, would you spend £30,000-40,000 on an extension? It probably costs a bit more than that, to be fair. I mean, is it worth doing it? Is it worth having the hassle of having a small indoor swimming pool? Because I do like the thought of having an indoor swimming pool. I mean, there's a lot of plumbing involved. Some of it I could do myself. I've got no doubt about it. You know, get a digger in, I could dig the hole. But then you're going to have to get somebody in to just do the building work of it and put an extension up. So I don't know really. Because certainly this is my parents' old house, and it's not the way I would have the house. And I would certainly think the house wants fundamentally modernising. It's like downstairs. I often think, well, you know, should it be more open plan? Because I think having it more open plan would open up the downstairs and make it look even better and cooler than what it is now. But would it change that dynamic? So I don't know. And then Hadzadak says, was it an SDKFZ 251 half track? Well, yes, but it's definitely got SDKFZ on the beginning, so I think it was the 251 half track by Tommy R. Is it 1/24 scale? and no idea where it is in the house at the moment. It'll be in a box, boxed up with the other ones, and I do have a lot of stuff like that. And again, when we got the wargaming room set up, it'll also make a new studio to film videos from, which is the idea. And then I've just got to go through all the stuff, throw away the crap. But then again, as a model maker, I've literally got random boxes of plastic, just plastic things I've collected, because that's invaluable as a model maker. And if you know anything about Warhammer, and you know anything about orcs, and I love orcs, it's always been a fantastic thing to paint up, and I love orc armies, got quite a few of them. I've got a random suitcase full of plastic bits, and on the front of it, I've written 40k orc engine, because there's always this myth in the old world of orcs, 40k orcs, that their engines are just fundamentally a box with just random bits thrown in, and somehow it works. So it's just my little jokey laugh. Because those bits of plastic are so valuable, and of course, because I've been dumpster diving and I found so many toys, I just thought, oh right, that looks cool. It's like I've got like a toy, kind of a wooden garage setup. But I think to myself, yeah, if I strip that down, added a lot of detail, a lot of wargame stuff, sprayed it all black and painted it, that will look absolutely wicked as a 40k bit of scenery. So you get these things, you think, oh yeah, that looks wicked, or you get various toys and think, right, I'll strip that down, take out a bit for all the plastic bits. And of course, as you get into the stage where they're trying to eliminate plastic out of society, which they're trying to do and they will do, plastic bits are going to become scarcer and scarcer and scarcer. So I just think it's quite valuable. I mean, even like pens and because and vapes. I mean, I've gone around so much and picked up vapes from the ground, because when I look at a vape, a disposable one, I think to myself, look at that plastic shell. Don't that look like a torpedo or something? Or that'll fit on a model. So I literally collected hundreds and hundreds of vapes, and I take them apart, and then I donate the battery to a battery bin so they get recycled. And then all the plastic tubing of the various different shapes and the bits inside, even the little rubberized bits, I think would look fantastic on models. So you save all them because they're so valuable as a source. So I literally got tubs and tubs and tubs and boxes full of random bits of plastic, which some people would look at it and think that's junk and that's rubbish, but it's not, because it's so valuable. And as a model maker, somebody that wants to get, because I don't do a lot of wargaming itself, but my love for wargaming is actually making the scenery and sometimes painting the figures or painting scenery. Is just something I absolutely adore. In fact, I used to sell wargame scenery and make it myself on eBay and Etsy and Amazon. And I used to do that for a living. I would literally go in my garden or go out. I'll collect sticks and make pile of sticks and paint them, put them on a base, and people would buy them from you. Random bits of stone, and you put in a pile, glue together, and paint up and put flock around it, and put some detail. People would actually buy them to you. So I must have, and I sold hundreds of them. So they're probably, well, look, why is it always around 1 hour 53? We lose connection. So I literally sold lots of them all over the world. And then Hasdak says, don't buy a cheap rotavator. They are rubbish. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So I'm going to look something like a Husqvarna or maybe a Honda rotavator. Definitely want to get a petrol one, because that's going to be easier than using a 4-stroke one, because I find 4-stroke engines to be a pain in the arse to get going. So yeah, that's going to be the route for me, I think. And it's true, some days if you can buy a cheap thing, it's not always good as buying an expensive one, because that will last 10 years longer than the cheap one. And why buy twice is the old saying. You buy a cheap one, you have to buy another one. And so if you have the money, buy something a little bit more expensive and get a quality make. And then Bruce Dog says, I was gardening today, Braggy, cut back a tree and then had an argument with my neighbour because I lit a fire. Laughs out loud. Oh yeah, but if you've got a light fire, you've got a light fire. So don't, bloody neighbour. I don't have that problem because I don't really talk to my neighbours, apart from two down the garden, they're my friends, and they know me as being a crazy Viking. So, I do crazy things, and that's the way I live my life. I just got to finish my coffee off. It's gone cold now. And then Hasdak says, I got all the ones I wanted, Braggy, so I don't need any more. Well, that's fantastic. You got your collection finished. And I love that. And you get a lot of pleasure from your things you collect. Ah, orange juice. That was lovely. And then Offer 10 says, same here. I used to play tactical games of scale 1/72. I probably have 4,000 models and countless figures. Yeah, I mean, I never counted them, but I got so many. And I never really liked 1/22 scale too much. So I do have a lot of, a lot of metal 20mm. It's 20mm in war game terms, 1/72. So I do have a lot of 1/22 tanks. I literally got boxes and boxes of them. So certainly enough to do displays. And I've got a lot of 1/22 armies, British, Germans, you name it. I've got it from World War II. Not many in World War One, but that wasn't really because there's so much trench warfare. It's more difficult to get into. I do have a lot of World War One 28mm figures in white metal, of course. And then Hasdak says these models are worth more unbuilt and unboxed. So I sometimes buy two, one to build and one to put up. Yeah, and that makes sense. It really does. And definitely agree with you, especially with Warhammer. If you got classic stuff, I mean, I've even got pre-Warhammer figures from when there was another company. But I think I forget now. I think when there was more the games, I got some of them as well. So of course, I'd love to paint those figures up, but I just don't because I know I'll be massively devaluing those figures. And I've also bought a lot of armies. And then I've stripped them down. And then when I used to be a second-hand war game seller, I would go on eBay and I would look for big armies to buy. There may be like an Empire army or a massive, ultramarine army, and maybe £100. Then I'll buy it and then I'll split it up into lots. Sometimes I have to do the figures up and touch them up a little bit and repaint them. Then I'll double my money. So I could always know how to make money out of war game figures. Then Offer 10 says, finally, I got so lazy, I bought die-cast and resin models. Yeah, I mean, I've even got the ability to cast my own figures as I got casting dies from a company called Prince Ludwig. I think is the name of the company, because they sell the rubber dies you can buy to cast your own figures. I think it's Prince Ludwig. Oh, no, it's not. It's Prince August. Yeah, Prince August. Yeah, and they do some really nice bits of scenery and ranges. And then Hasdak says, that sounds like a big collection at Offer 10. And it's amazing what people do collect. And it'd just be nice to get to the stage. And certainly in the past, I did share on the community page a picture of some of my war game models. But at one point, I had my war game room, which is my middle room, now my library, and that was all set up with all my war game figures, and it looked awesome. But things changed and things happened. Then Offer 10 says, yeah, they almost became a problem. So I had to stop collecting. Well, yes, that's a problem. It can take over your life. Well, anyway, I'm going to have to think about going, but it's been 2 hours and I need to get a shower and settle down and get to sleep as I'm tired. So it has been lovely. But I will try to get back on tomorrow night for another live stream, because I love to live stream a bit longer, but I'm actually really shattered, actually. So, and of course, the more you talk, then I won't have a voice the next day. So I also don't want to overstretch my voice as well. And I just need to chill out for a bit. So I got some energy tomorrow to go in my garden. So that's my plan for tomorrow. And I've got to think about a video. It's Tuesday tomorrow, so I may put out a folk tale. I got a couple I did the other night, which are quite good. So I'll decide about one of them. Hashtag says good vid. So thank you guys. Always love doing this. Always love doing the live streams. I wish I did them more in the past. And then Hadstack said, I got to go weeding. I got to go deep brambling. My brambles are taken over again. And some plots in my garden I can't even get into. So I need to spend more time doing that, really, just to try to catch up. But of course, it's like the fourth bridge, isn't it? So until we meet again, it's goodbye from me. And thank you guys for being in the live stream. If you've not checked out today's long format video, do go and check it out. It's a really nice video talking and having a close look at the Romano-British sword, and eventually I may sharpen it up, and then we could test it on camera against some bottles, and I'll slowly look at developing a Romano-British impression. And until we meet again, it's goodbye from me. Love you guys to bits. So we'll see you tomorrow on another live stream, all being well. If I'm not too tired, I don't think I will be, because I should get some good sleep tonight, or come back tomorrow night. So goodbye, folks. See you. Bye.